Very good afternoon and welcome to the webinar. On behalf of the Coalition for Food and Nutrition Security and Child Fund, I welcome all of you in today's webinar. I'm very happy to see like so many passionate program leaders are here, and they all are with us in this journey, and they all are here to listen the entire discussion today and how to take it forward. And today is an important day for each one of us, like the Rashtriya Poshan Mah, the National Nutrition Month 2020 is coming to an end today, with lots of new commitments, lots of new pathways, and lots of new ideas how to take this nutrition and food security in coming days. Because we know this fact very well, India is not just fighting undernutrition, but also battling COVID-19 outbreaks in this country. And zero hunger and good nutrition have the power to transform and empower the present and future generation. Because malnutrition remains a threat to the survival, growth, and development of the children. And the children cannot wait. So this is the important time for each one of us to go for a consultation, generate new ideas, share the success stories, share the inspiring stories, and take it forward. I'm extremely happy to be a part of today's webinar. I'm extremely happy. And which represents convergence, a major theme of Poshan Abhiyan. And today's webinar is the convergence between government, the research, international bilateral organizations, private sectors, and also the civil society organizations. Like Child Fund should be commended for taking the food and nutrition security as a thirst area. Child Fund India, an international child development organization, has been working in our country, India, since 1951 with child and youth centered program. And today's webinar of the larger nutrition campaign that Child Fund India has been running, and local for nutrition. So sharing the collective local knowledge, that's very, very valuable from across India, that helps improving nutrition and health of the children and the youth, and the power of community interventions to help fight malnutrition from the rural networks and urban audiences, to raise awareness around malnutrition and how it can be fought using locally sourced food. So the local is very, very important, whether it's a Nutri Garden, whether it's a kitchen garden, whether it's a food taboos, how to address. So all those things are very, very important for food security as well as nutrition security. And today, we are honored to have the presence of esteemed group of panel members consisting scientists in the field of health and nutrition, passionate program leaders, and look forward to hearing their views, their ideas, their thoughts, and how that will inspire each one of us to take the agenda forward. So let me, without much ado, turn to the speakers, and I would like to invite first our first speaker. He is a well-known person in the country, Dr. Abulya Lakshmaiah, who is the scientist and head the Division of Public Health Nutrition, ICMR, National Institute of Nutrition, NIN, Hyderabad. And Dr. Lakshmaiah, we would like to listen from Dr. Lakshmaiah, like to address the food security in India, especially during the COVID, and the government is continuing lots of initiatives in this regard. Where are we now, and how these initiatives, schemes is giving a pathway, a roadmap to all the program leaders to take this agenda forward. And the Bal Amrutam, that's the wonderful model they have created, how that can be replicated. So without taking much time, I would like to request Dr. Lakshmaiah to share his thoughts and the viewpoints. Over to Dr. Lakshmaiah. Yeah, you are unmute, Dr. Lakshmaiah. Please unmute yourself.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sujit. And good afternoon, all the dignitaries and those who are participating program. As Dr. Sujit said, that program leaders and even so many implementers, executors, and those who are working for community development. Thank you for your all services during this pandemic. So as I said by Dr. Sujit, so we have several intervention programs, national nutrition intervention programs, and more than half a dozen programs we have. And these programs extensively spread all over the India. These are all vertical programs, you know. But because of COVID pandemic and because of lockdown and restricted movements, and so the programs really some the coverage and other things definitely reduced, not up to the mark. But even though especially the major programs are ICDS, Integrated Child Development Service, and this program is available every nook and corner of the village, remote villages, including because more than 14 lakh Anganwadi centers are working now. But the Anganwadi centers are closed because of COVID infection, and so then the government is trying to give food security by distributing the foods, because previously, so before COVID, they used to serve hot cooked food for 3 to 6 year children. But now the situation is not conducive. Then so they are most of the states, they are distributing house to house wherever the beneficiary is there through Anganwadi workers. But in the first 2 months, nothing was given, because there was a very drastic effect on food security during even this lockdown was announced 23rd March by Government of India. From 23rd March to almost June, there was no program. Actually, almost most of the time is lockdown was continued in everywhere, and because of COVID, almost the services will stand still. But after June, so the government instructives were there to distribute same raw ration to the households wherever beneficiaries are there, especially under 5-year children, under 6-year children, and pregnant, lactating women, and some programs for even adolescent girls also there in some of the districts. So those were, but that was not that effective, because on-spot feeding is different, for distributing to the families is different. Lot of sharing will be there, whatever the food material and whatever these things, and so that way these programs cannot meet actually the food security things. But still, maybe we hope the Anganwadi centers may be open in the mid of the October, or the government is planning. So we will see. So even especially even midday meal is a large program. So it is a midday meal also a large program, and served to school children, 5 years to 12 years age group, from starting from first class to 8th class. In some states they are giving even 10th class. In some states up to intermediate also midday meal is being served with the state government funding some extent. So even the schools totally closed now, online classes are there. Then the supplementation is a big problem. So they used to get one meal, one lunch meal, complete meal at schools. But those who are very poor people, they are the most sufferers in this program. So now, as per Food Security Act 2013, so whenever the lapse is there, whenever the schools are not serving the midday meal, and they should get the compensation, some amount of money in lieu of midday meal. And that also some states are paying this amount, but all states may not be doing that, but they have to do, they have to pay the compensation as per the Food Security Act. So in other programs, IFA distribution or massive dose of vitamin A, even immunization, all programs are suffered a lot because of COVID. Now, slowly, these programs also now picked up, and we hope these programs also may get the expected coverage. And even before our programs are very well, because most of the programs are designs are very well and inputs are there, but only we fail because I have since more than 20 years I'm working, 25 years I'm working in this public health nutrition area. So we have evaluated more than dozen programs, national programs, IFA tablet, even massive dose of vitamin A, then midday meal several times we evaluated, and ICDS we evaluated state-wise, national-wise. But everywhere the program inputs are good, but the only problem is the coverage, and there is no proper monitoring and supervision. That monitoring and supervision, if monitoring and supervision is strengthened, so definitely we can reach that food security and nutrition security. We have wholesome food programs also there. We have a specific nutrient programs, so iron, iodine, and so many even vitamin D, vitamin A, specific programs also there. But only thing is we hope the coverage should now gear up and improve the coverage. Then only we will reach the nutrition security. So these are the my views about the national nutrition programs. And if you coming to the models, what are the well accepted intervention models? So we have a couple of models are there. One is especially those who are undernourished children, and even normally also ICDS 3 to 6 year, 3 to 36, 6 to 36 months age group children. So we have to, they don't come to the Anganwadi center, as all of you know, and we have to supply ready to eat food and take home ration, THR. So we have with the government of Telangana. So because the government of Telangana, so we we develop a new nutrient dense THR. It is a nutrient dense THR we developed, and then previously it was some it is a therapeutic food was there. It was a soya based food, but in our evaluation, the acceptance was very low. In our evaluations in the ICDS, the acceptance was very low. We have evaluated in in Andhra Pradesh. That time it was a combined Andhra Pradesh, and it was very low. Then we thought of we formed with the help of state government as a nutrition expert committee. So in the nutrition expert committee, so we identified that it is better to replace it with soya flour with milk and pulse based THR. So then we developed a recipe accordingly, including the skimmed milk. So the skimmed milk and roasted wheat and Bengal gram, and then sugar, and then other even fortified with 9 micronutrients. Now that becomes a 12 almost 12 micronutrients fortified this Balamrutam. And Balamrutam is Sujit, you want to tell something?
No, it's good. Please.
Yeah. So then the Balamrutam, and actually this Balamrutam, two things are there. Balamrutam, previously we developed Balamrutam, then the UNICEF and the state government and the Telangana, they approached Telangana and other some 3 states, they approached us to develop another recipe to suitable for SAM and MAM children. So because SAM children needs more calorie dense and even then nutrients dense food is required because their body weight is very low. So the digestibility and other things also compromised. So then we also developed Balamrutam Plus. In the Balamrutam Plus, we added other things. And actually, Balamrutam, it was a roasted wheat, Bengal gram, skimmed milk, sugar, and groundnut. But in Balamrutam Plus, so we have added one is groundnut and rice flakes. Groundnut and rice flakes also added to this. And moreover, we have also increased the skimmed milk and then reduced the sugar some extent because there was a guidelines to reduce the sugar because 25 gram sugar was there previously. Now that made into 20 gram sugar because the calories coming from sugar should be reduced. That was the general healthy diet principle. So we are also following healthy diet principle, and fat also increased from fat is fat skimmed milk 10 to 13 grams. Milk powder, skimmed milk powder increased. So that way the proportion of fat, it should be more than 20% calories should come from fat. So in children, especially 25 to even 30% calories should come from this fat. So that's why we modified this Balamrutam. Now this was Balamrutam. Again, we have conducted acceptability trials, then even acceptability trials, and as well as shelf-life period. And this it is a milk-based food, and it is the shelf-life period is almost 3 months. It is more than 3 months, but we have fixed 3 months, and we have suggested to 3 months. And now the UNICEF is helped a lot. This Balamrutam Plus and the total funding and other things also they have given, and they have also very good cover design, because the design also very important, packaging and instructions how to use this grassroots level workers, how to suggest a grassroots level worker to caregivers like mother and other things. So it was beautifully designed, the packaging, and we now this another good thing here is this total Balamrutam as well as Balamrutam Plus, both are produced by state government itself. The state government owned enterprise is there here, that Telangana Foods. So that is also another one advantage in the Telangana and even Andhra. So both this Telangana Foods is supplying Andhra as well as Telangana state. Both states it is catering. So that was another advantage. And now this is reaching, the Balamrutam is reaching more than 60 lakh children per day, every day. And now the distribution is not stopped even during this COVID. So the THR is distributed every beneficiary, and the THR is highly accepted one, that Balamrutam. And this was evaluated even some of the agencies, and it was published in PLAS, so you might be seen. And the last presentation also I have given that PLAS paper, scientific paper, and in that paper also in that it was a significantly coverage is improved, and other indicators and process indicators also improved. The paper given in detail evaluation also we have presented. So, and another second, this is about Balamrutam, and Balamrutam is now scaled up in other states also. They are approaching to share this technology and as well as formula, and we have shared this even 8 states. So that is also in pipeline to prepare other states and produce this food other states and to serve their state children. So, and the second one is this was also we discussed in last meeting also, the nutrition surveillance system. We have developed a nutrition surveillance system model. So in this system, because as a scientist, as a researcher, we used to assess the problem, analyze the problem, and recommend to the stakeholder departments actually. So that was our main aim was there previously, but most of the recommendations and the reports used to go to only selves. So then nobody seen about recommendations and action taken report, and there was a nil almost action taken report. So now we thought that it will not work. So it is better to triple A approach. So we have to assess the problem, analyze the problem, why problem is occurring, what are the actions to be taken. Then we have also added now action, immediate action. We have to discuss with the stakeholders, the concerned stakeholders.
Right.
Then we have to take action immediately. So then the things will be improved. So that is another model we developed in 6 states, and we are covering almost 1,000 Anganwadi centers. This project was on more than 3 years now. Just now, this project will be there up to March next to 2021, and we are also evaluating final impact. What is the impact? What is the lessons learned in this project? Then most of the states also approaching to scale up this nutrition surveillance system. Here one more, just
sorry,
another one.
Dr. Lakshmi, I'm extremely sorry because of the time.
Okay.
Thank you very much. And the way you have explained, I can understand the passion because you initiated all those things. And I'll be very happy if you can share the findings of the evaluation, and will be from our end. We will be very happy to circulate among all the members.
Just one point I want to just share that we have also created a each one one unique ID for each child, so that every time we need not enter all these things, and this real-time data we will getting for each child, and we can this data we can develop roadmap, the health card roadmap, and their weight graphs also will come, and we came to know the we can assess their growth faltering also. So that is the advantage in this. Thank you. Thank you
very much, and thanks for sharing your insight and the current picture also. Thank you very much, Dr. Lakshmi, as usual. Very passionate presentation. And now I would like to request Dr. Amar Shah. We are very happy to have him here today, the project management specialist, TB USAID India, and under nutrition and tuberculosis have a bidirectional relationship, which is especially relevant in the Indian context. So we would like to listen from Dr. Amar Shah, and I would just a humble request to Dr. Amar Shah that if he can finish his talk in 7 to 8 minutes. Thank you very much. Over to Dr. Amar
Shah. Thanks, Dr. Sujit. And before I come to answer your specific question, I just want to reiterate the points related to how nutrition is fundamental to achieve ending extreme poverty and promote resilience and prosperous society. USAID's multi-sectoral nutrition strategy is one of its first kind at USAID. It is aligned with the 2025 World Health Assembly nutrition targets and reaffirms USAID's commitment to our role as a major international partner in fight against malnutrition. This nutrition strategy is unique because it targets very specific challenges and elevates it across for all work in health, agriculture, water and sanitation, and food assistance. And the strategy's multi-sectoral approach addresses both direct and underlying causes of malnutrition. So let's say it focuses on linking humanitarian assistance with development programming, helping building resilience to the shocks which vulnerable population or community gets. So with that, one of the vulnerable population is people with TB infection. We take the example of India. Close to 40% of Indian population is already infected with TB bacilli. And based on the immunity status, people may get TB. Malnourished and underweight people are more susceptible to convert in TB, and that's a real huge issue. As you pointed out, of course, recently the COVID-19 pandemic also has badly affected all countries for their TB elimination efforts, including India. In fact, experts estimate that, like with the COVID, all countries are pushed back to at least 5 to 8 years on their TB elimination agenda. And at India, country level, in fact, COVID also has adversely impacted notification of TB, which has kind of reduced to 35% lower than compared to last year, 2019. And I just want to reiterate few points. Let's say the National TB Elimination Program has issued a various guidance and advisories now, which includes bidirectional screening of TB and COVID, as well as screening of TB among influenza-like illnesses. So we don't get loss on the reduction in the TB notification. In fact, with the collaboration with the many other partners like USAID supported partners also, state are providing TB healthcare workers a training about COVID-19 prevention among TB patient and presumptive. Again, with the nutrition context, collaboratively, there are new measures applied for uninterrupted supply of drugs as well as to the food, as a home delivery to all TB patient and their family. So I think these are the points which are kind of currently happening. But fundamentally, we also know that TB is a social disease. Undernutrition is one of the strongest social determinants for TB in India. Along with TB disease, medications, the undernutrition needs to be treated as one of the comorbidity and to completely cure the patients. And we also know better nutrition status is a natural vaccine against TB. And without addressing undernutrition, we will not be able to achieve the TB elimination in India. So I'm also happy that with the support of NIN, Central TB Division, government has introduced a nutrition support guideline for all TB patient and their family. Also, government provides direct benefit transfer, cash transfer to the patients. And again, I want to reiterate that this concept is not only focusing on TB patient, but also to their family members. So that concept is feed the family, because family members are at most risk for developing TB. At field level, I just want to reiterate few of the excellent examples where TB patient and their family members get locally available food, which is very low cost, highly rich in the protein, and it is provided through the community members. Kerala is also an example where all village panchayat level, wherever there is a TB patient in their community, they do get free of cost nutrition support by the panchayat members to their family as a ration, for monthly ration for 1 year. Similarly, my colleague Pratibha Pandey will speak of their kind of one of the initiative called Mukti Project, where this is also one of the ground level examples where we are thinking that pay for performance. Basically, the organizations, like one of the question here is there that like how NGO can support government. So I think this is one of the example where organizations are actually helping the on-ground implementation of the support to the nutrition support to the TB patient and family member, and government or the corporate sectors are reimbursing that. And last, I think what I would kind of say is I see a tremendous role of private corporates. There are really good examples using their CSR resources. They are coming big forward and actually helping, providing support to TB patient and their family members on nutrition. With that, actually it is going to give a more impact on TB incidence. And I'm sure with that, we will have a healthier and happier workforce and society. Thank you, Sujit.
Great. Great. Thank you very much, Dr. Shah. And you have like very inspiring initiatives which has been already taken by USAID and the partner organizations here in India. And that is very, very valuable for each one of us and very relevant for the public health nutrition program also. So I'm moving ahead to our next speaker, Ms. Shakina Baker, CSR Head, Philip India. And the private sector has long been engaged to achieve food and nutrition security at household level, individual and community level. And Philip India has done a lot in the field of ARI, acute respiratory infection, which represents an important public health issue. So I would like to request Ms. Shakina to share some of the learnings of Caliph India, and request again that 7 to 8 minutes if she can cover her presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Sujit, for setting the context. And I believe it has been really great to listen to the two earlier speakers, Dr. Abula and Amar, on what has been the issue in terms of nutrition in the country, what are the initiatives that the government and the non-profit sector is doing to eliminate those. Obviously, it's a long process, it's a long way to go. We're not saying that it's going to be vanished in the times to come. It is something which is going to take a lot of process. It's something which is going to take a lot of collaborative efforts, where private sector also plays a big role. I represent a corporate, so I represent Philips, but Philips has been in the field since the past almost 130 years, and very relevant in the healthcare space as well. While we are doing a lot of initiatives in terms of providing access to care in the healthcare space to people around the world, in India, it has been a journey which has been we are really proud of that journey, where we are trying to create more avenues of access to healthcare other than the business that we are in. Looking at the CSR space, obviously the term is very fancy to use, but frankly speaking, it is a part of the business process that we have. It's not something that's an addition. It was there since the beginning. It is a part of it, discussed at the business forums. It is part and parcel of what we are doing to reach out to the communities that our businesses cannot reach to. We have specific agendas and strategies in place for CSR. We want to drive value-based healthcare and related initiatives. They can be education, that can be nutrition, that can be training, research, but something which is really linked to healthcare and has to be addressed in a certain way. It doesn't matter what capacity we are trying to link it, but it should be something related to that, where an impact can be made and more people can get on board. We're trying to expand our reach to underserved communities. Now, underserved communities may have access to certain facilities, but they may not have access to some facilities which will cure their healthcare and nutritional needs. And also trying to look at innovations in technology usage through these initiatives. When we talk about acute respiratory infections, we picked up a campaign last year. We started basically in 2018 globally. But in India, in the end of 2018, we started looking at ARI as an issue which can be dealt with through regular interventions and also through promotion of awareness, so that people are able to take responsibility. Childhood pneumonia had been with us. While we were doing the baseline survey, we realized malnutrition plays a very big role in making the children very susceptible to these problems and making them the first victims of ARI-related issues, especially childhood pneumonia. I think it goes without saying that if you are able to tackle childhood the nutrition from the birth itself, it is going to create wonders. It's going to create that space within the country where we are able to address this at the beginning itself. So we have projects on human milk banking, which is where we are promoting and addressing the requirements of a sick newborn child at birth itself, rather than waiting for the child to survive through technology or through other interventions. But this has really worked very well with us. We have been collaborating with the government on it. We have been able to set up milk banks. We have been able to train the staff of the government hospitals how to take care of sick newborn children at that level, so that they don't end up being malnourished and they don't end up having diseases which can be very well taken care of if they are nourished properly, they have food security, and they have those kind of requirements that a healthy child should have. From the ARI perspective, if we did a research in high incidence states in the country, I think it was quite an alarming thing that we came to know that the households with lower socioeconomic status had high risks of acquiring pneumonia at 1.3 times. And it's like something that we needed to really address. And we have started working on creating a case management process of how to manage pneumonia cases in India in association with the government. And we are looking at not only creating a case management process, but we are also looking at creating a social behavioral change communication model, so that behaviors in the community are changed. They are made aware of how things can be taken care of by looking at n number of issues that lead to pneumonia, but majority of it is the lack of nutrition, the malnutrition that is very much prevalent in lower economic households. And also very much interested and focused on ensuring that exclusive breastfeeding till the age of 6 months is picked up, though it's quite prevalent in rural areas, but still not followed as it should be from the moment the child is born. Within an hour, the child should have access to that, but it is being implemented from an awareness perspective. We are trying to ensure that frontline healthcare workers are not only addressing the health issues, but they're also addressing the nutritional requirements that are very, very relevant to the child's survival and healthy and well-being. Because we see under 5 deaths in India are very high, and I think they account for 31% due to malnutrition. And that is what is alarming, and that is what should shake us up. That's what should wake us up at the right time, and make sure that we collaborate not only with the non-profit organization, because we as CSR leads are dependent on a lot of non-profits for the expertise that they have, the reach that they have with the community, but also the government, that also bigger collaborative organizations, also the organizations that are doing research on it, so that there's no gap, so that we don't work in silos and we are together working and trying to solve one problem. And I think it's an amazing opportunity to talk through on a platform like this, where we are talking and sharing what each one of us is doing, how we can collaborate, how we can work together, how we can change the scenario that is right now facing us on the ground. Really nice to be a part of the discussion. Thank you so much, Dr. Sujit. If there are any questions later on, I'll be more than happy to take them. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Sakina, and you have given lots of food for thought, and especially the contribution which private sector can make, and especially in the field of ARI, that's very, very different. Very few people are have understanding about the importance of nutrition in ARI, and that's the important area to look into. So thank you very much. And now I would like to request Ms. Pratibha Pandey, the health specialist, Child Fund India. And because Child Fund India is doing a lot in this country, and how the local food, especially the culture part, we know this fact very well, that food and our nutrition is very much related with the culture, our taboos. Lots of taboos are there, lots of food taboos, and lots of things are related with the local culture. And the Nutri Garden and other things, that's a new pathway to address malnutrition, food security, food safety, as well as food nutrition security also. So I would like to listen from Ms. Pratibha Pandey about the work which Child Fund India is doing, and how that will be a kind of role model for many of the civil society organizations. Over to Dr. Ms. Pratibha Pandey.
Thank you, Sujit, and good afternoon to all of you. And we always believe that malnutrition is not only the problem of that child, but it is a problem of that community, and the solution also lies with that community. So we have a rich culture, we have lots of locally food in our community, but which is now being replaced or by other things, because the urban people, we are the role model for those rural people also. We are also, so looking at that only, I will speak about few community-based sustainable model, which we have done in Child Fund India. In more than, we are working in more than 15 states, and we are doing nutrition programs, which are specifically community-based model, but also the integration with other sectors. So multiple sectors integration and life cycle approach we are following to address this malnutrition. So in our locations, like what we have done is, we have Mahila Arogya Samiti, which is women groups. So these women groups, they act as a role model for other women also. They are trained on nutrition, importance of nutrition. And they are basically the mothers of malnourished child. Or the child who is 5 years, less than 5 years old, they are trained. They come, they do group meeting, they do social mapping. They only recognize that they know that where is the problem, how to address that problem and come up with the solution. For example, many of these women groups, we have trained them on Nutrimix. So they act as a self-help group. They prepare Nutrimix powder, which is from locally available food material. For example, ragi, jowar, gur, which is not much in use nowadays, because these people are they are following wrong practices, or they are leaving the nutritious food which were there in earlier, which we used to consume. So they make Nutrimix powder for the malnourished children and mothers, and they give it to them. Besides that, they have a saving bank accounts also, where they deposit some money, and that money is used by children and mothers whenever there is a health emergency to them. Besides that, to promote this locally food material, low-cost food material, we also do a Sneha Shivir, which is a form of Positive DBS Plus, where mother and children come. They have sessions on health and nutrition over there, and cooked food is served to them. For example, if we take the example of ragi, the different dishes can be prepared from ragi in a and also maintaining the nutritional value of this, because now they are preparing, but the nutritional value is becoming lower down. So publishing a booklet on these foods and distributing to mother, and cooking them and feeding their child. And at that sessions only, the children weighs, like growth monitoring and all is done in those sessions, and then the follow-up takes place. So this is the one model which we are doing. And also because we are finding that most of the caregivers, the mothers, more than 50% mothers, they do not have livelihood options. They are depending on male members, or there is food insecurity at their household level. So promoting that, like nutrition garden, which is emerging one, and is very low cost solution to address anemia and also the malnutrition in our country. So these women groups, these women are also trained on nutrition garden. They are given seeds. They use that food, that vegetables and fruits for consumption also, and they sell it so that they can have some money in their hand for the child care and for other to fulfill the other nutritional needs of the children. We are also trained women in agriculture. They are trained as agricultural and agriculturalists, and also in poultry. For example, we are doing some projects in a few locations, tribal locations, where these women are trained in poultry. Like Kadaknak is one of the breeds. So we have trained in how to rear them, how to sell them at one hand, so that they can sell them and they can have a food at their home and nutrition at their home. And on other, these women, these entrepreneurs are also trained on nutrition aspect, and the nutritional aspects also. What is the importance of nutrition? And side by side promoting locally food material which is there in their in that locality. So location to location it varies, because we have a diversity of food, and then contextualizing them to that location and giving to and telling the local people only how to use these things. Goatry also has an option which we have done in few locations. These women are trained in goatry, and because the goat milk is good for anemia, reducing anemia, these were distributed, and it's becomes a source of nutritious milk, and on the other hand also addressing the livelihood security. So we always believe that these community-based models are more sustainable, and linking them to the community nutrition resource centers which we have established in few locations, and also referring them to nutrition rehabilitation centers if the child is more malnourished. So these women, they only identify which child is malnourished, where to refer, and they keep track of each and every malnourished child and mother, and even the adolescent in their locality. And also it creates demand, because they go to CDPO, they go to MOs that there is issue, the nutrition rehabilitation centers are not opening, or this season is not good for our mothers to come, because agricultural crops are there and they have to harvest. So it's creating a demand at the one side, empowering these women, providing livelihood options so that the nutrition insecurity, which is very, very prevalent in our society, in our country, is addressed. So we use the local wisdom only. It's a local wisdom. These women, they know how to cook, but maybe they are following the urban food habits and like food habits, and that's why the nutritional value which were there in our local food is not being recognized the way it has to be recognized. Sujit, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pratibha, and your this is very passionate talk, and I can understand the food and the feeding behavior in family, community are closely linked to and shaped by the family preference, practices, as well as the background. But the Nutri Garden, the integrated Nutri Garden, it's not only just vegetable and fruits. You rightly mentioned about livestock, and that's the new pathway to address malnutrition and the role of many civil society organizations. So thank you very much for the wonderful work and the way you presented. Now I would like to request Dr. Navneet Nevatia, the pharma and public health professional. We are very happy to have him today here. And we know this fact very well that public-private partnership and undernutrition, there are examples for the future prospects. And during this COVID also, it has come up in a very strong way that how this public-private partnership can play an important role to address the food security at community level, and how to change the behavior also in this for the nutrition security. So I would like to request Dr. Navneet Nevatia to share his thoughts and the viewpoints, and I'm very much sure that will be useful for all of us. Over to Dr. Navneet.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sujit, and also thanks to the previous speakers and the organization for giving me this opportunity. My name is Dr. Navneet Nevatia. I'm like most of you, I do not come with a background in food or nutrition, but we all eat food, so it's very well connected to us, and it's not very difficult to understand what the requirements are. And as a public health expert and working in the field for last 16, 17 years, I can share my experiences, how it can be beneficial. So majority of my experience has been working with the political leaders for political advocacy for HIV/AIDS program. And as Mr. Amar Shah, he mentioned about TB and the challenges with respect to nutrition, how it affects the immunity. It also goes for HIV. And I'll share my experience that how we have engaged previously the political leaders for bringing together a massive program for HIV/AIDS for the public good. Now, Dr. Lakshmaya, he has very categorically mentioned that monitoring and supervision is a challenge. It's a missing piece. And also someone in the audience has asked that how can we engage NGOs? How can they contribute? So I would like to share a few examples. First is that our political leaders who are people's representatives, if they are engaged, I think they can fill many gaps. They are the people who are elected by the people, so they have this mandate as well to cater to the larger good. So I would say, Dr. Sujit, that it's not PPP model, but I'll add another P, and that is people. People, public-private partnership, and how we can engage is that. I was, before this talk, I was going through various parliamentary questions and responses by the government. So few things which have come up is that the talk about food and food security and nutrition, it's not very high on the agenda in the public discourse. Whereas if you see many other topics, many other subjects, they are debated more. So the question is how to raise the profile of this subject in the public discourse at the highest level in the parliament, and at the grassroots level at Gram Panchayat or at district or block level. So my suggestion is that, at every district level, there is a district health monitoring committee. Now, this committee is chaired by a member of parliament from that particular geography, and the district collector has to convene that. But unfortunately, these committees do not meet. This committee has the mandate to cater to all the health needs of that local area. Now, I think the previous speaker has mentioned about the high incidence or high burden states. If we can identify those states or districts and then try to re-energize these public health, this health monitoring committees, not 100%, but even if we can do 50%, it will go a long way in addressing many of the issues. Because when the leadership sits and asks questions, many things fall in space. Second thing is the monitoring and supervision. In HIV program, we have seen the community-based monitoring, and also right now I'm working for hepatitis program. We have seen that when communities are engaged, when they demand for something and they start becoming eyes and ears of the government also finds value in engaging them in meaningful manner. So by doing so, the program's effectiveness that increase. Third thing is that Dr. Lakshmaya, he mentioned about various vertical programs. And I was reading that, just like any other program, and Mr. Amar will agree that even for TB, there are many verticals, many other ministries which are engaged. In HIV, we were dealing with 35 ministries and departments, be it railway, youth, be it education, etc., etc. So I was going through a parliament question, and there are many ministries and departments enlisted, all verticals. Can we have horizontal lines? Can we have a convergence dialogue? And there I would like to suggest that under umbrella of UNICEF, because that's a UN agency, and it will function in a bipartisan manner. Can we bring together like-minded members of parliament or local leaders to have a dialogue? Now, first thing is to sensitize them. We talk about malnutrition, and 2 days back I was listening to chief scientist of WHO, Dr. Soumya Swaminathan, and she mentioned that micronutrition had been a challenge, but now also macronutrition, because of the lockdown, and there is a huge gap and people are suffering. But to feel that pain, to really relate to that issues people are facing, to first sensitize them. In public life, many people get desensitized and things become regular. They do not pinch us as much as they should be. But start sensitizing those key parliamentarians from those high burden districts, and then educate them and provide them very simple talk points, not complex things. Many things, they just get lost in the complexity of things. Provide them some simple talk points which can be in the public addresses, or which they can often mention, or provide them some list of the local food that can be supplemented, which Ms. Pratibha, she mentioned that many of the foods have been replaced by the urban food or so-called processed food. So if we do that, we can bring this subject a bit higher on the political agenda, higher in the public debate. That will definitely help. Other issue which I would like to suggest is that keep track of the various developments, because you have asked me how can we re-strategize our policy advocacy. So we should not only work with the mainstream ministry and department, but we should tap various important events, meetings, maybe standing committee meetings happening, all debates happening, and feed the parliamentarians or the people at higher position who are going to contribute with few simple talk points. Once this debate starts, I think you all are experts, and many people are working in this area. It will just catalyze the things and will start making things a bit faster. I'm not an expert in the field, but I can tell you that I have seen many policies happening, reforming, bad things going, good things coming in, and there's always a trigger for that. It can be an incidence, it can be a big pandemic like COVID, or they can be just a right suggestion at right time to the right person, and things they start moving in. Last thing, the public, private, and people partnership. CSR, we have also tried. It's actually not that easy. It's a very difficult area, but the leadership can define the agenda. The leadership can show the way to the corporates. Where do they have to invest? Now, there are many competing priorities. I think health should be a priority, and within that, nutrition definitely should be. For that, the answer is again sensitizing and educating your people whose voices matter. So with that, I'll close. If there are any specific questions, audience can ask me, but I can give you assurance as a public health expert and working with various UN organizations, including UNAIDS, UNDP, and some part of it with UNICEF and others. If I can support in any manner, I'll be happy to support and facilitate that talk and making those inroads into the power corridors. This is a subject which should be close to everyone's heart. Thank you very much. Back to you, Dr. Sujit.
Thank you very much, Mr. Anuruddha, and your like the way you talked about leadership as well as how to sensitize people, how to create an enabling environment. That's very, very important, very valuable. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. And it was a pleasure to listen all the passionate speakers, passionate leaders. And now there are a few questions in the chat box, and it's good to take a couple of questions. Maybe that's very, very important. And I can see a couple of questions, maybe like how to address the cross-cutting issues in our program, especially I think this is directly related with Ms. Pratibha, like the gender, access to the potable water, sanitation, how that was, how to tackle the malnutrition by addressing all those things. And was there any assessment of the program or the impact? I think one of our participants, Ms. Chirashree Ghosh, she wants to know.
Okay, so as I said that when we develop nutrition projects, nutrition programs, integrated model always work, because only one, there cannot be one solution for undernutrition, because there are multiple factors responsible. So if the responsible factors are multiple, how one solution can address this whole problem? So whatever we design, like for example, I said that in Child Fund, we work in life cycle approach. We work with mothers, from pregnant mothers to the child becomes 24 years of age, and with multiple sectors. So WASH is one of it. So we work with WASH. So whenever we are training the mothers, the women groups, it's not only nutrition, but there are sessions planned, like from 12 sessions. So how to address WASH, how WASH is responsible for diarrhea and malnutrition. And agriculture, I said that women if they do not have caregiver, they do not have livelihood security, it is impossible for the mothers to give nutritious diet to their children. And these are the practical problems we see when we go to the community. Also, if we are working in urban, and the sanitation is the biggest problem. So like in Mumbai, so we have identified these problems, and on the basis of that, like we do community consultations. It's not a new thing, the child consultation with the mothers and others, and whatever the problems come out, sitting with them only and design the programs for them. So not only addressing one, and also like these are the one things we also promoting food fortification, biofortification, working with them, taking the help of other organizations who are already the player in who are already the players in biofortification and fortification, and working with them so that this component can be taken care of. Also, I missed to mention one thing, which was on impact bond, which Amar said that which we are doing for nutrition and TV. So a person, if achieves one nutritional level, the money is paid on the basis of the impact. So we can design these kinds of projects also, because in India, there is no such impact bond for nutrition related impact or outcome. So if CSR comes right, because everybody wants their money back. So for that, the nutrition related impact bond, I feel, can be one of the solution. We can be tried for the nutrition. It has been tried for maternal health and education. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ms. Pratibha. Now I'm keeping in view of the time. I'm taking one more question, and that question is directly to related to the ARI and how what community can play an important role in ARI and what kind of experience we are having, like the engagement of community. So I would like to request Ms. Shakina Baker to share her views.
I think we cannot operate without the consent of the community. The community is always the first level and the last level that we think of. It is whatever interventions that we do are for the benefit of the community, and you have to have their consent in whatever changes that you want to have in there, whether behavioral or other means related to health or their well-being. All our initiatives on ARI have been in association with the communities. We have worked through baselines where we actually look at what are the situations the community is right now. What is it that they look at? Why don't they see it as a problem while we as outsiders see it as a problem? And what is the challenge that we are facing for them to look at it the way we are looking at it and try to connect together and work on it and resolving it. Community mobilization has always been one part and parcel of the projects that we do. Community participation in all the initiatives that we do. Community interventions with the government interventions as well, at the local level as well as the district level, is extremely important and plays an important role, whether somebody has to work a little harder than with one community than the other, but you can't function without community being a very important stakeholders of the entire intervention.
Thank you very much, Shakina. Well said, and thank you very much to all of you once again. And one thing is very, very clear and very visible from the like our country, India, is at an historic juncture where, with respect to the development and especially in food and nutrition security, its position in the world. So there is a need to call for commitment. So the call of action is already there. Lots of initiatives, lots of and the sustained leadership. We heard about the sustained leadership, food and nutrition security. How the uninterrupted, universal and high quality coverage that is very much needed. Adequate financing, one of the questions was also there. Then the dietary diversity, Pratibha rightly mentioned about the dietary diversity, that can be assured. Adequate micronutrients, there are many pathways and nutrient garden is one of them. Then the nutrition as a development indicators. So how we can take the nutrition as a development indicator, invest in data system, and the most important is the collective multi-sectoral approach. It's not like it's a multi-dimensional issue, so multi-sectoral approach is needed and strengthen the holistic system for nutrition. So these are the points I just jotted down based on the discussion we had today, and it's a very fruitful discussion. Lots of ideas for future, lots of food for thought, and lots of pathways we are having. So now we are coming to an end, and I would like to request Ms. Neelam Makhijani, Country Director and the CEO of Child Fund India, for our closing remark and vote of thanks. Thank you very much, and over to Neelam.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. And I have my indeed pleasure to be invited to do the easiest role. I have listened to some of the conversations, and it has been an amazing learning for me. For Child Fund, as Child Fund, we have celebrated this whole month for nutrition, and I think our aim was to also do encourage a bit more of knowledge sharing between urban, rural, and as Pratibha, of course, talked a lot about what we do at Child Fund, and she's a specialist in that. So I won't go into the technicalities. But for us, Child Fund, to focus on it, obviously, like there was a question, how can we advocate more about it? So I think these are the conversations that are very important if you want to advocate the need of how much important it is. And also in today's world, I think for the last few months, all we have talked about immunity, better health, better eating, look after yourself, exercise. So I think those have become the buzzwords for the last few months. So the topic was very, very interesting. The conversations we've had were very interesting. I've learned a lot again this morning, afternoon. So I'm really going to be very, very, short in terms of saying what I heard, but useful. Thank you, Dr. Sujit Ranjan, for moderating this conversation. And I know you're quite busy today. You've got a couple of others. Dr. Lakshmiya, thank you for your wisdom. Amar Shah, Amar is a dear friend, colleague. I have so much adoration for absolute. I adore Dr. Amar's wisdom. He has been the architect of the Mukti TB bond that we are working with USAID on. So Amar, indeed grateful. And with Amar, the way he says things, and he says it so simply that somebody so novice like me also understands it. So Amar, thank you for giving time to this platform as well. Sakina, of course, I heard what Philips is doing, very impressive, and I hope at some point we can work with you. Pratibha, of course, my colleague and my dearest friend. Dr. Tewatia, again, I heard you also in the end as, and you gave some very practical ideas on how to take this forward. So I think everyone has contributed hugely to this platform. Thank you so much. We culminate this campaign, the month campaign today. So it was a pleasure to have you with us. And I do hope these conversations continue and it just does not become somebody said something, but how do you document this? And then do we share it more widely? And of course, platforms like USAID, who have such high currency in terms of sharing what we hear, and also high currency in making sure that things happen. So I do hope that these conversations will continue. We've learned from it, as I have. And thank you to all the participants for being there for this long. But I suppose, Dr. Sujit, the way you moderated it kept the energy going. So thank you for that, and having the right questions to ask. So have a lovely day ahead. Thank you all. Bye, Amar. I'm sure we'll be connecting very soon again. So thank you. God bless, and stay safe and well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, madam, and thank you very much to all our participants and all our speakers for their valuable suggestions, inputs, and the sharing their learnings. So together we will make a difference. Sahi Poshan, Desh Roshan. We can achieve it together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was well said. Thank you. Thank you all. Bye-bye.